morning. I have started a roll sheet at the back of the class, so be sure and sign the roll sheet. I have D2L pulled up in the syllabus because there's something I want to point out to you. We're a little bit ahead of schedule. It says that we're supposed to be finishing talking about strategy today, but we pretty much finished talking about that with the SWOT analysis on Tuesday. Next week I have to be gone on Thursday, and so I have a substitute that will be taking my class for me, so you will have class. Don't think that you cannot come. He will take roll. It will count against you. For those of you who have bothered to read the syllabus, you know that you have 3 free absences after that. You start losing points for each additional absence. So if you don't come, just because there's a sub, it will count as one of those 3 free absences that you have, unless, of course, you have a valid, legitimate excuse. So we were supposed to start talking about environmental scanning next. What I'm going to do today is I want to start talking about ethics. And the reason I'm going to start talking about ethics today is because I will be here on Tuesday, Dr. Morelli will be here on Thursday. My dissertation topic focuses on ethics, and so that's the area that I really like. It's the area that students like the least, but it's the one that I really enjoy the most in terms of talking about this class. So we'll talk about ethics today, and on Tuesday, Dr. Morelli will talk about environmental scanning on Thursday, and then we'll go back to sort of ethics and then move into marketing research when I come back on the following Tuesday, which would be June 30th. So we'll finish talking about ethics because it takes a little bit of time. It's an important area of marketing and an important thing for us to think about. And so I really enjoy it. That's what I'm going to do. Notice that so that you can't file a grade appeal against me, I put that the course outline is subject to modification in case there are things that happen, like I have to go out of town for a meeting that is unavoidable. So that's where we're going to go for the next week and a half or so in this class. So it's going to be a little bit disjointed, but again, I put this is subject to modification up there so that we can have some flexibility in terms of that. So we're going to start by talking about ethics, and we talked about strategy last time, and one of the things that and this is a nice segue into that, one of the things that I talked about in terms of strategy was Theodore Levitt's seminal article on marketing myopia. And the idea that people think that they're in one business and they forget. So using that, I'm going to use a railroad example to start our discussion for today in terms of thinking about ethics. Let's go back and think about, back in time, the railroad companies and how important they were. And they're still important today. They're run a little bit differently. We have a lot more technology. How many of you remember the train accident that occurred right before the semester started? And one of the things that they said could have maybe prevented the train accident that occurred was something called positive train control, which would slow down the train before it actually goes through these curves and maybe have avoided the collision. How many of you remember that story? It was like the first part of January that this happened. How many of you remember that story? Just one of you. You all should watch the news. You're business students. You should be engaged. We're going to talk about environmental scanning. You should scan the environment. So I want to present you with a hypothetical to start our discussion and get us thinking about today. Let's suppose you work now in a modern railroad company, and you are one of the controllers who sits at a place and decides whether or not which train goes on which track. They used to go out in the olden days. There were people that would actually be out there and would flip a switch that would sort of move the tracks when the train came through. That's now done by somebody sitting in a control room. Let's suppose you are this person, and I've got a little diagram here for you to think about. And let's suppose one of the trains that you're controlling that's carrying cars, automobiles, from Michigan to the rest of the country, radios in and says, we've lost our brakes and our positive train control is not working. And you can see that there are people up working on the tracks, and the train is supposed to be going this way, but it needs to slow down to avoid hitting these 10 people, and it can't for them to have time to get out of the way. And they've all got on these ear protectors that they use around railroads so they can't hear you. But if you flip a switch, you'll divert the track off, and there's only one person working on this spur over here that you're going to kill. What would you do?
Kill the one person because it's less people.
You would kill the one person. rather than 10?
I think most people would panic, honestly, if they killed 10.
You think that they would panic?
They not know what to do. Voluntarily steer and kill another person.
Okay. How many of you agree with killing the one person to save 10? How many of you don't agree with that? Nobody?
I think logically we don't want to kill anyone.
You don't have the choice. Someone's going to die.
I figured you would say that, that's why I said it.
It's literally a 10 people day.
What's that?
Saying that none of those 10 people, like none of them saw the train coming.
They're going to all die.
10 people and not one person saw this train.
They're all got their backs turned to it. They're busy hammering on the spikes on the railroad track. Let's take a different, no, they're all wearing their protective headgear.
I mean, I could hear the train warning somewhere, room, like my TV on and it's around 60 on the side. Because they could hear stuff like that. I guess.
It's still going to be, I mean, it's going to be some, not multiple, greater than one is going to die. What do? Do you flip the switch?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes? Why? Less number of people. Let's take a different example. Let's suppose you work in a warehouse and you're up working on a articulating lift, getting some supplies down, and you notice a guy is on the articulating lift, one of your coworkers is on the articulating lift with you, and he's a big fat guy. And one of the forklift drivers down below is hopped up on meth and is out of his mind and has lost control of the forklift and is about to crash into 10 of your coworkers who again have protective headgear on because they're working in a factory. But you can stop the 10 deaths by pushing your big fat coworker off the articulating lift and in front of the forklift that's about to crash into the 10 people. What do you do?
See, I feel like you would probably go to jail because you killed them on purpose in that situation. So.
Do you think that the train switch operator would go to jail for selecting 1 over 10?
Depends on us, the jury.
He'd probably still get sued money, I'm sure.
Oh, somebody's going to be sued.
So.
But isn't the death of 1 going to cost the company less than the death of 10?
Like, right there that you actually picked him up and threw him over.
No, you just gave him a little shove. He's not terribly coordinated, right in front of the forklift.
Now the real question is, after you push your buddy off and
Not your friend.
or the forklift off the island, it still doesn't stop the forklift from killing the other 10.
It's going to stop the forklift, trust me.
Wait, did the 10 people like see what's happening, like know that like you saved them, or they just gonna look over and be like, that guy's dead, you killed him? Like areas with cameras, like.
It doesn't matter. They were going to die. They're going to die if you don't push
Well,
them.
no, it's like,
What's that? How many of you would push your fat coworker? Only 3 of you. How many of you would flip the switch in the other scenario? The majority of you are willing to flip the switch in the other scenario, but not a majority of you are willing to push your fat coworker.
Because that's where the moral standard comes in.
I feel like it's an ethical regardless. If you're making a choice to do something wrong, that makes it unethical. So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
So you think that killing the 1 in this instance, you ought to just let what was going to happen. The train was supposed to be going on this track straight away anyway. You ought to just let it happen.
I mean, yeah, regardless, like, you made a choice to kill someone. But you didn't make that choice necessarily to kill those two people. It happened.
Okay.
It's a choice.
Yeah, you walk into West Village making a choice.
Either way, 10 people are going to die or 1 person is going to die. Now, the majority of you were willing in the first example to let 1 person die, but you're not in the second example. Why is that?
I think in the moment it's bad to have intent to kill a person, making a choice to kill someone, than to ignore people on accident.
Okay, so maybe your mind matters, what your intentions are matter. Physical contact. Either way, 1 person's going to die.
How do you look at 10 families in the last year? You have to say, no, we would kill this guy. How do you give a flag to a family because you had that sort of regard instead of a whole company?
As a lawyer, I can tell you, and should this matter, as a lawyer, I can tell you that in the first instance, you're probably not going to be prosecuted. But in the second, you are. In the first instance, you're probably not going to, you might be prosecuted, but it's unlikely. Does that matter?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does the law matter?
It shouldn't, but it does.
It shouldn't, but it does. Is the law an acceptable moral minimum? No? Just follow the law is not an acceptable moral minimum?
In legal environment of business, it said it was.
In what?
In legal environment of business, it said it was. Quote, like a quote from.
Really?
Yep, the minimum ethical standard is following the law.
That's absolutely a priori wrong.
I'm just,
Wrong. Who told you that? I need to talk to that. Which
is it
professor?
not on the power, it's on the PowerPoint.
It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong.
That's fine.
We'll talk about why it's wrong. Where do these standards come from? These ideas that we have about law and morality. Criminal law, I will tell you, is predicated generally on some idea of morality. But should it be? I don't know. Is this something that we're born with? Do we know this innately? Well, let's think about this. Let's watch Dr. DeWall and his TED Talk on the biological basis of morality and see if that makes anything clearer. I will tell you that if you are horribly priggish, there is one sort of moderately inappropriate scene, but it's a TED video in this. So if you want to leave, because there's a scene where 2 monkeys are engaged in a sexual act, you're welcome to leave, and I won't hold it against you, and I'll let you know when we're finished watching it. You can come back.
I was born in Den Bosch, where the painter Hieronymus Bosch named himself after. And so I've always been very fond of this painter, who lived and worked in the 15th century. And what is interesting about him in relation to morality is he lived at a time where religion's influence was waning, and he was sort of wondering, I think, what would happen in society if there was no religion or if there was less religion. And so he painted this famous painting, The Garden of Earthly Delights, which some have interpreted as being humanity before the fall, or being humanity without any fall at all. And so it makes you wonder what would happen if we hadn't tasted the fruit of knowledge, so to speak, and what kind of morality we would have. Much later, as a student, I went to a very different garden, a zoological garden in Arnhem, where we keep chimpanzees. This is me at an early age with a baby chimpanzee. And I discovered there that chimpanzees are very power hungry, and wrote a book about it. And at that time, the focus in a lot of animal research was on aggression and competition. And I think the whole picture of the animal kingdom, and humanity included, was that deep down we are competitors, we are aggressive, we're all out for our own profit, basically. This is the launch of my book. I'm not sure how well the chimpanzees read it, but they surely seemed interested in the book. Now, in the process of doing all this work on power and dominance and aggression and so on, I discovered that chimpanzees reconcile after fights. And so, what you see here is two males who have had a fight. They ended up in a tree, and one of them holds out a hand to the other. And about a second after I took the picture, they came together in the fork of the tree, and they kissed and embraced each other. Now, this is very interesting because at the time, everything was about competition and aggression, and so it wouldn't make any sense. The only thing that matters is that you win or that you lose. But why would you reconcile after a fight? That doesn't make any sense. This is the way bonobos do it. Bonobos do everything with sex, and so they also reconcile with sex. But the principle is exactly the same. The principle is that you have a valuable relationship that is damaged by conflict, so you need to do something about it. And so my whole picture of the animal kingdom, and including humans also, started to change at that time. So we have this image in political science, economics, the humanities, philosophy for that matter, that man is a wolf to man, and so deep down our nature is actually nasty. I think it's a very unfair image for the wolf. The wolf is after all a very cooperative animal, and that's why many of you have a dog at home, which has all these characteristics also. And it's very unfair to humanity, because humanity is actually much more cooperative and empathic than given credit for. And so I started getting interested in those issues and studying that in other animals. So these are the pillars of morality. If you ask anyone what is morality based on, these are the two factors that always come out. One is reciprocity, and associated with it is a sense of justice and a sense of fairness. And the other one is empathy and compassion. And human morality is more than this. But if you would remove these two pillars, there would be not much remaining, I think, and so they're absolutely essential. So let me give you a few examples here. This is a very old video from the Yerkes Primate Center where they trained chimpanzees to cooperate. So this is already about 100 years ago that we were doing experiments on cooperation. And what you have here is two young chimpanzees who have a box, and the box is too heavy for one chimp to pull in. And of course there's food on the box, otherwise they wouldn't be pulling so hard. And so they're bringing in the box. And you can see that they're synchronized. You can see that they work together. They pull at the same moment. It's already a big advance over many other animals who wouldn't be able to do that. And now you're going to get a more interesting picture, because now one of the two chimps has been fed. So one of the two is not really interested in the task anymore. Now look at what happens at the very end of this. He takes basically everything. So there are two interesting parts about this. One is that the chimp on the right has a full understanding he needs the partner, so full understanding of the need for cooperation. The second one is that the partner is willing to work even though he's not interested in the food. Why would that be? Well, that probably has to do with reciprocity. There's actually a lot of evidence in primates and other animals that they return favors, and so he will get a return favor at some point in the future. And so that's how this all operates. We do the same task with elephants. Now with elephants, it's very dangerous to work with elephants. And another problem with elephants is that you cannot make an apparatus that is too heavy for a single elephant. Now you can probably make it, but it's going to be a pretty clumsy apparatus, I think. And so what we did in their case, is we do these studies in Thailand with Josh Plotnick, is we have an apparatus around of which there's a rope, a single rope. And And if you pull on this side of the rope disappears on the other side. So 2 elephants need to pick it up at exactly the same time and pull. Otherwise nothing is going to happen and the rope disappears. So the first tape you're going to see is 2 elephants who are released together, arrive at the apparatus is on the left, with food on it. And so they come together, they arrive together, they pick it up together, and they pull together. So this is actually fairly simple for them. There they are. So that's how they bring it in. But now we're going to make it more difficult, because the whole purpose of this experiment is to see how well they understand cooperation. Do they understand it as well as the chimps, for example? And so what we do in the next step is we release one elephant before the other, and that elephant needs to be smart enough to stay there and wait and not pull at the rope, because if he pulls at the rope it disappears and the whole test is over. Now this elephant does something illegal that we did not teach it, but it shows the understanding that he has, because he puts his big foot on the rope, stands on the rope and waits there for the other, and then the other is going to do all the work for him. So it's what we call freeloading. But it shows the intelligence that the elephants had. They developed several of these alternative techniques that we did not approve of necessarily. So the other elephant is now coming. And it's going to pull it in. Now look at the other doesn't forget to eat, of course. This was the cooperation reciprocity part. Now something on empathy. Empathy is my main topic at the moment of research, and empathy has sort of 2 qualities. One is the understanding part of it. This is just a regular definition, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, and the emotional part. And so empathy has basically 2 channels. One is the body channel. If you talk with a sad person, you're going to adopt a sad expression and a sad posture, and before you know it, you feel sad. And that's sort of the body channel of emotional empathy, which many animals have. Your average dog has that also. That's actually why people keep mammals in the home and not turtles or snakes or something like that, who don't have that kind of empathy. And then there's a cognitive channel, which is more that you can take the perspective of somebody else. And that's more limited. There's few animals. I think elephants and apes can do that kind of thing, but there are very few animals who can do that. So synchronization, which is part of that whole empathy mechanism, is a very old one in the animal kingdom. And in humans, of course, we can study that with yawn contagion. Humans yawn when others yawn, and it's related to empathy. It activates the same areas in the brain. Also, we know that people who have a lot of yawn contagion are highly empathic. People who have problems with empathy, such as autistic children, they don't have yawn contagion. So it is connected. And we study that in our chimpanzees by presenting them as an animated head. So that's what you see on the upper left, an animated head that yawns. And there's a chimpanzee watching, an actual real chimpanzee watching a computer screen on which we play these animations. And so yawn contagion, that you're probably all familiar with, and maybe you're going to start yawning soon now, is something that we share with other animals. And that's related to that whole body channel of synchronization that underlies empathy. And that is universal in the mammals, basically. Now we also study more complex expressions. This is consolation. This is a male chimpanzee who has lost a fight and he's screaming, and a juvenile comes over and puts an arm around him and calms him down. That's consolation. It's very similar to human consolation. And consolation behavior, it's empathy driven. That's actually the way they study empathy in human children, is to instruct a family member to act distressed, and then they see what young children do. And so it is related to empathy, and that's the kind of expressions we look at. We also recently published an experiment, you may have heard about it, on altruism in chimpanzees, where the question is, do chimpanzees care about the welfare of somebody else? And for decades it had been assumed that only humans can do that. That only humans worry about the welfare of somebody else. Now we did a very simple experiment. We do that on chimpanzees that live in Lawrenceville, in the field station of Yerkes, and so that's how they live, and we call them into a room and do experiments with them. In this case, we put 2 chimpanzees side by side, and one has a bucket full of tokens, And the tokens have different meanings. One kind of token feeds only the partner who chooses, the other one feeds both of them. So this is a study we did with Vicky Horner. And here you have the two color tokens. So they have a whole bucket full of them. And they have to pick one of the two colors. You will see how that goes. So if this chimp makes the selfish choice, which is the red token in this case, he needs to give it to us. We pick it up. We put it on a table where there's 2 food rewards, but in this case only the one on the right gets food and the one on the left walks away because she knows already that this is not a good test for her. Then the next one is a pro-social token. So the one who makes the choices, that's the interesting part here. For the one who makes the choices, it doesn't really matter. So she gives us now a pro-social token and both chimps get fed. So the one who makes the choices always get a reward. So it doesn't matter whatsoever, and she should actually be choosing blindly. But what we find is that they prefer the pro-social token. So this is the 50% line, that's the random expectation. And especially if the partner draws attention to itself, they choose more. And if the partner puts pressure on them, so if the partner starts spitting water and intimidating them, then the choices go down and they actually don't want to. It's as if they're saying, if you're not behaving, I'm not going to be pro-social today. And this is what happens without a partner, when there's no partner sitting there. And so we found that the chimpanzees do care about the well-being of somebody else, especially these are other members of their own group. So a final experiment that I want to mention to you is our fairness study. And so this became a very famous study, and there's now many more, because after we did this about 10 years ago, it became very well known. And we did that originally with capuchin monkeys, and I'm going to show you the first experiment that we did. It has now been done with dogs, and with birds, and with chimpanzees. But with Sarah Brosnan, we started out with capuchin monkeys. So what we did is we put 2 capuchin monkeys side by side. Again, these animals, they live in a group, they know each other, we take them out of the group, put them in a test chamber. And there's a very simple task that they need to do. And if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the 2 monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. So cucumber, even though it's really only water in my opinion, but cucumber is perfectly fine for them. Now if you give the partner grapes, the food preferences of my capuchin monkeys correspond exactly with the prices in the supermarket. And so if you give them grapes, that's a far better food, then you create inequity between them. So that's the experiment we did. Recently we videotaped it with new monkeys who had never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one get a grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now. Yes, again, cucumber. She tests her rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again. So this is basically the Wall Street protest that you see here. Let me tell you, I still have 2 minutes left. Let me tell you a funny story about this. This study became very famous, and we got a lot of comments, especially anthropologists, economists, philosophers. They didn't like this at all because they had decided in their mind, I believe, that fairness is a very complex issue and that animals cannot have it. And so one philosopher even wrote us that it was impossible that monkeys had a sense of fairness because fairness was invented during the French Revolution. So, now, and another one wrote a whole chapter saying that he would believe it had something to do with fairness if the one who got grapes would refuse the grapes. Now the funny thing is that Sarah Brosnan, who's been doing this with chimpanzees, had a couple of combinations of chimpanzees where indeed the one who would get the grade would refuse the grade until the other guy also got it. So we're getting very close to the human sense of fairness, and I think philosophers need to rethink their philosophy for a while. So let me summarize. I believe there's an evolved morality. I think morality is much more than what I've been talking about, but it would be impossible without these ingredients that we find in other primates, which are empathy and consolation, pro-social tendencies, and reciprocity and a sense of fairness. And so we work on these particular issues to see if we can create a morality from the bottom up, so to speak, without necessarily God and religion involved, and to see how we can get to an evolved morality. And I thank you for your attention.
So, is morality about empathy and reciprocity? Or is it more than that? In the example of the death of 10 versus 1, does it involve any amount of empathy or compassion? Okay. Is it possible to have empathy? Truly have empathy? Truly understand what it's like to be someone else? There's an old Steve Martin movie called Roxanne. How many of you have seen it? Very old now. In it, he says, I could never be a woman because I would stay at home all day and play with my breasts. Well, the point is that he would still be Steve Martin, right? He can't really imagine what it's like to be a woman. You can't really imagine what it is to be somebody other than who you are. So is empathy possible? Is that a foundation of ethics? Is it possible to have empathy for someone else?
I think you can share like similar experiences and feelings.
But how do you know that? There's a philosophical concept called solipsism. Solipsism is the philosophy that the self is all one can truly know. You can't really know what it is to be someone else. A number of you had my sales class this morning, so you've already heard this example, and I apologize, but I've only got so many stories. So if you have me for more than one class, you unfortunately have to listen to the stories twice. I tell students all the time that I have no sympathy for you when you start begging me. It's usually at the end of the semester when students are worried about their grades. It's odd to me how often students wait until 2 weeks before finals, and they're like, is there any way I can get an A? You're at an F. So you're saying there's a chance? No. I say I have no sympathy for you, but I tell students I have a lot of empathy for you. Because I've sat where you sat at one point in time. I realize that you think that college professors are like Venus born of the foam and not subject to your human frailties, but that's not true. I was a student for a long time. But can I really understand what it is to be you? I started teaching here when I was 22 years old. And at that time, it was really cheap to go to college. when I went to undergraduate school at OU, it was less, books and tuition were less than $3,000 a semester. I didn't have to work. My parents could afford that. Is it $3,000 a semester here, $6,000 a year basically to go to college? Can you go to college for $6,000 a year with books and supplies and tuition and fees? So do I really have any empathy? Do I know what it's like to be you, to have to work and have a job? I had no kids. A lot of my students now have children. I have none. Can I really have empathy? Or do we have to rely on something else? What about this idea that ethics and justice are reciprocity? Is it just reciprocity? What does it mean? Is fairness a synonym for reciprocity? What does it mean if I say I'm fair? It's got to be more than reciprocity, isn't it? Reciprocity can't be a synonym for fairness. Let's think about this example. How should I treat students? Let's suppose that I bring in cupcakes for the class. How should I distribute the cupcakes in class?
Just make sure everybody gets one.
Make sure everybody gets, that's what we're talking kindergarten, right? If you're gonna have a party for your birthday, my nephew, he's in 2nd grade now, and for his birthday, he was born on the winter solstice. They had a party for him at school, but he had to have enough cupcakes for everybody in the classroom. You couldn't just bring cupcakes for your cool friends and exclude everybody else. That's called communism, by the way. Isn't it? So should I give everybody a cupcake?
Should just leave left the phones and say, take one.
Take one if you want one. Okay? Everybody gets a cupcake.
That's fairness.
That's fairness, okay. Everybody will get an F in this class. You just told me that's fair. I'm treating everybody the same.
Just roll them together.
Is it more than that? For the rest of class today, I'm going to let you work in your groups, and I want you to answer this question. There will be a Dropbox. It will be due at the end of the day on Tuesday. What is justice? What does justice have to do with marketing? At a minimum, your group answer should contain a thesis statement. So I want you to write for this. That's why I'm giving you the rest of class. So you have 35 minutes, and you'll have until the end of the day on Tuesday, till midnight on Tuesday to complete it. It's a 5-paragraph essay. Thesis statement, substantive examples in the body of what justice is, and from that you should have a well-reasoned, logical conclusion. So a 5-paragraph essay. If it were me that was writing this, I would say justice is blank, as exemplified by these 3 things. Then tell me what those 3 things are, elaborate on those, and reach a conclusion. This is the way academics write. My mother, who's a creative writing teacher, a former English teacher, says to me, Grant, your writing is uninspired when she reads my papers. And I agree with her, it is. It's uninspired. Thesis statement, substantive analysis, so there should be a logical connection between these. So you have 3 thesis, substantive example 1, 2, 3, and there should be a nexus between these. That's a logical connection that leads to a conclusion. There should be a nexus between all of that that ties the whole thing together on what is justice. So I'll give you the rest of class to think about that. We'll talk about your answers. Elect someone other than who was your spokesman last time to be your debater, to engage in the interlocutory challenge with me on Tuesday. If you didn't sign the roll, be sure and sign it so you have about 35 minutes. And I'll give you some time at the beginning of class on Tuesday as well to think about this. And then maybe you'll want to, hopefully that's still going. You'll want to revise it after you hear everybody's answer. All right?